Hey friends, this is Jim once again from Stardust Services, joining you from my creek bed nature spot again. I hope you're doing well, whatever's going on for you. I found an axe handle buried in the creek bed. I have no idea how long it's been here, so I feel like an archaeologist excavating. And I'm backed up in the bushes here up against this tree because it hurts my butt to sit on the jagged rocks closer to the water. So I'm sitting on more of a sandy area. I just wanted to show you how beautiful this is. It was much higher the other day when I made a video a few days ago. Obviously the runoff from the rains is diminishing. But I just love being near running water. Because I have a Pisces moon in my chart. Pisces is a mutable water sign, and mutable means it's always changing and morphing and transforming into something else. And so out on my run this morning, I was meditating on my time spent in Australia. I've made 3 journeys down under, to the great land down under, right? And I spent about a year there between 1994 and 1995, and I remember going on Walkabout with an Aboriginal brother friend of mine, and he took me through a part of the rainforest, and he says, "Mate, everywhere you go in nature, there's food, there's medicine, there's everything," and he would pluck a leaf and say, "This is good for infection." And then he'd walk a little farther and he'd stop and he'd bend down and he'd pick a little blossom up and goes, "And this is good if you can't sleep, mate." And he says, "And this is good." And he just it was like walking through nature's pharmacy. And of course, I have a lot of mentors and friends and colleagues who spent a lot of time down in the Amazon rainforest with shamans doing plant medicine ceremonies, you know. And so I'm musing and philosophizing and contemplating the wisdom of Mother Nature. And one of the unfortunate byproducts of our technological civilization is we've become divorced from nature. We've become separated. We spend more time gazing into these screens and typing and sending texts and emails and WhatsApp and downloading this and live streaming this and Zoom calls, which is all great. I'm not against technology at all. In fact, I love it. But for me personally, this is just speaking from my experience. I need to find that balance. I can't just cybernetically be absorbed all the time because I start to get anxious. And so to get back out in nature, to ground with the elements. When I was in Fiji on one of my trips, I spent some time in the Fiji archipelago. There's 333 islands out in Fiji, and the vast majority of them are uninhabited. And I remember talking to some Fijian brothers while I was there during a kava ceremony. We were drinking kava. You grind up this root into a powder, and then you soak it in cheesecloth in a big wooden bowl, and you drink it. And it's wonderful. It really helps you sleep really well. But he was saying his forefathers and his ancestors could navigate across the ocean without any charts or GPS or anything. They would use the stars, the moon, the other planets, and they could see the reflection. The shimmering reflection on the bottom of clouds would tell them where they were, because certain types of clouds would form over certain island groups. And they could even find fresh water in the middle of the ocean where fissures in the seafloor had cracked open and fresh water was just streaming out from the ocean bottom, and it would separate away the salt water. And they knew where to find this fresh water in the middle of the ocean by the way the clouds formed. And these things just blew my mind when I learned about all this. Also, in the Aboriginal wisdom of the outback of Australia, they have so many connections with the natural law of the cosmos. One teacher was telling me that the marriage law that they use in their civilization, in their culture, comes from the planet Jupiter. And with the naked eye, you can see the 4 Galilean satellites of Jupiter, the 4 main moons. They orbit in a plane. Ganymede, Callisto, Europa, and Io are the 4 moons of Jupiter that you can see with the naked eye. And of course, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of other moons that have since been discovered with the Hubble and the James Webb Space Telescopes. But from the ancient culture's point of view, the 4 moons of Jupiter were the main ones. And the 4 regions and the 4 elements, and it's all connected, and everything has meaning. Everything has wisdom. When I was in India, one of my teachers said, when you watch the elephant bathing in the river, you know, they intake water through their trunk and they spray themselves and they get all clean in the river, and then they go on to the bank and they roll in the dirt and they throw dirt all over themselves. He says, this is a part of the elephant wisdom that teaches us that simply doing our spiritual practice on one day of the week and trying to get rid of all of our negative tendencies, just one day a week, right, is like the elephant bathing in the river and then throwing dirt all over himself. Because you just keep creating more and more work for yourself. And he says the wisdom is to do your practice every day so that you make a gradual progression in your evolution, right? And of course, this is January 2nd that I'm making this video, so there's a lot of talk out there in the world right now about New Year's resolutions. And I just posted an article on Facebook about why our New Year's resolutions don't work. And one of the reasons, just from an astrological perspective, is that there's no significant astrological cycle or pattern to back up those resolutions and help propel them forward. Kind of like a surfer paddles out on his surfboard and catches a wave and rides it, right? He can't surf unless a wave comes. Surfing is meaningless unless there are waves, and surfers have to patiently wait for sets of waves to come on a point break, and then they see them coming. They'll check the weather forecast to know when big storms are happening out in the ocean, and they can time the arrival of these sets of waves, and then they head on down to the beach and they catch them. So similarly, tuning ourselves into the rhythms of nature, whether they're sea waves, lunar cycles, and the bulge of the gravitational pull of the moon on the Earth's oceans, or storms affecting waves, or planetary cycles, it really helps to synchronize your intentions and your actions with the natural rhythms of Mother Nature. Another reason, 2 main reasons that are just downloading to me why these resolutions usually don't work, is because it takes 40 days to set a new habit pattern into place in your life. In other words, you have to practice something every day for 40 days for it to become a part of your normal routine and have it integrate into your lifestyle. 40 days. We've heard in the biblical tradition about 40 days and 40 nights. There was a comedy movie called 40 Days and 40 Nights about a guy who was, I can't remember what it was about, but it was a funny comedy, and it had something to do with 40 days. So everything is cyclical. There is cosmic law within which we exist, right? There is cosmic law, like the universal law of cause and effect, right? In Newton's third law of motion in physics, Sir Isaac Newton discovered that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And so we say things in our culture like, pay it forward, and what goes around comes around. And when something bad happens to somebody that we don't particularly care for, we say, he had that coming. So we intuitively know about these laws. We talk about them. And one of the other unfortunate aspects of the technological, computer, digital age in which we live is that information has become cheap because it's so readily available. So the word question, within the word question, which is inquiry, right, is the word quest. And if we go back just a little bit in our history, before the Industrial Revolution, if you wanted to learn something, if you wanted to know something, you had to get on your horse and go on a quest and travel to find a teacher who knew what you wanted to learn. And you would apprentice yourself to that teacher, inquiry, submission, and service. And you would serve the master. And if the master saw that you were making progress in your devotional service, then the master would start to impart knowledge to you, would start to impart higher principles to you, and he would oversee your progress as you integrated these principles through your practice. But today, because information and knowledge and just data and facts are so available out in the world on the World Wide Web, we just click and we just scroll through all this stuff because it's right. So I've always known this is another truth in life, that if something comes easily to you, you don't appreciate it. It's when you have to put in the effort to have something that you really value it and appreciate it. So the quest for knowledge, that hunger, that curiosity, that inquisitiveness, that I gotta find out about this, right? Of course, that's what makes a great astrology reading, is when the client is sincerely wanting to know about their life. If they're stuck, if they're at a crossroads in their life, if they don't know what to do next, if they're overwhelmed with sensory input coming in, if their relationships are rocky and they can't work their way out of it, if their health is failing and they know that there's some cause and effect chain, they need to go upstream to root out, like I excavated this axe handle out of the sediment here, right? They have to dig deeper to find what the root cause of this ailment really is. It's emotional, it's psychological, it's linked to a trauma from childhood that's never been recognized, healed, and integrated into the personality, right?